Hadi. Good evening and my warmest welcome to this, our first ever professorial lecture for the Faculty of Human and Health Sciences. My name is Margot Parks, for those of you that don't know me, and I am really honoured that we have such an exciting evening ahead with our inaugural professorial lecture speaker, Davina Banner-Lukaris. But I am going to set the scene as we begin, and I'm going to do that as we start with a teaching that I've discussed with Elder McIntosh about what happens when we don't always need to have Elder McIntosh to make sure that we are really acknowledging the territories on which we are standing, and that we can do that with our own journey. And so in the spirit of the big picture of this event, because this is a really fun opportunity for us to think big and then come right back to where we are in this place at this time, I am going to ask all of those online as well as those in the room to stand for a moment and go on a small journey with me. And this journey begins with us recognizing and honoring the territory of the Lheidli and the extraordinary journey that the Lheidli people and the Dakells people of these territories have gone through as they have been not only thriving here for over 9,000 years, but also in being the welcoming and still stewards of their unceded territory. And now I'm going to take you on a little journey. And those of you online, I really would like you to think for a moment on the territory that you're in, not only acknowledging it, but think of a waterway that you are next to. And I'd like those of us here, you can close your eyes, you can stare at my silly hat that I will explain later. But I'd like you to ground with the land and the water and follow that water to the ocean in your imagination. And think about the territories that it is passing, the other peoples that have lived there, Indigenous peoples and many others who have come and are part of those conversations. And eventually, as you do that, you're going to join an ocean. And one of the reasons I would like you to join that ocean is I'd now like you to imagine traveling all the way to Worcester in Worcestershire, where our speaker comes. So you've got to imagine, you've got to get yourself through the ocean with all of your geographic experiences, figure out your way, whether you're traveling east or west, you're following an ocean all the way to the United Kingdom. And one of the reasons to do that is to recognize that we are always connected, not far away from where Dr. Banner-Lukaris was born. And likewise, not far away, I can do the same journey. If I speed my way back to the Pacific, I can go across the Pacific and be in the territories of the Ngāi Tahu, where I am from, as an educator and now as a professor here at UNBC. And having done that, I would like you to just take a moment and think about that global picture, all of the planet that you have crossed in your imagination and what you're bringing into the room today, and allow yourself during this talk to have that kind of big picture in mind on our entire planetary home, and with this particular story that we're very fortunate to be shortly hearing from Dr. Banner-Lukaris. And while that's happening, I'm hoping that our colleagues online are still hearing. And I can now ask you to all seat with those thoughts in mind. So thank you for allowing yourself to be in the big picture. And one of the reasons I wanted to mention the journey across the Pacific, when I take my journey down to the Pacific Ocean and I cross and I am lapping on the east coast of the southern part of Aotearoa, New Zealand, is that that is the area Otago or Otago is the area where I did my PhD, and hence I'm wearing my regalia for two reasons. One, because I'm very proud to be an Otago alumni, and I'm very proud to have also worn this regalia as a member of the faculty here at UNBC for 15 years. I got my 15-year pin today. But also that when Dr. Kristen Rennie and the Faculty of Indigenous Studies, Social Sciences and Humanities initiated the first inaugural professorial lecture series, here on campus. I was so thrilled because I had witnessed these lecture series when I was at the University of Otago, and I always felt, wouldn't it be great if we could have them here on campus as a moment to lift up our colleagues and let them shine and tell a story, not in a classic research presentation, but tell a story of their journey that has brought them here in this place, here on Dachau's territories at this time. And so the University of Otago, as I experienced it and as Dr. Rennie experienced it, Dean Rennie, is that it was an opportunity for a robust community-facing event where we listen to the story of a faculty member, and we also come to understand our shared responsibility as those within the university community to be shining a light on issues that we need to understand more. And to be inspired by people's individual stories. So that is the spirit in which, when I was the co-lead of the Health Research Institute, we started chatting with the previous dean and said, let's do it in the Faculty of Human and Health Sciences. So I'm really delighted that today I am representing both as an interim dean of the Faculty of Human and Health Sciences, but also as a previous co-lead. This is a partnership between our faculty and the Health Research Institute, where we hope to be hosting several of these a year, a tradition that I hope to hand on to the incoming dean with enthusiasm, and having launched it, he won't be able to refuse. So and I also really want to thank Leanna and Bree and all of the team in the Health Research Institute who know how to put on a great event, and who it's really wonderful to be able to partner in this way. And also reflecting this very important conversation and interaction between the academic side of campus, our faculties, our units, our schools, and also the connected research world that we're all part of. So you're all part of that as well, and that part of this process is to welcome very overtly those people that are online. So we do know there are a lot of people online, lots of people who couldn't be here tonight. So the seats here that are empty actually have people in them, in my imagination, because there's various other commitments happening. And of course, it's the day before powers are due. So there's a lot of faculty members who are preoccupied with their performance evaluations that are due tomorrow. But nonetheless, it's an important part of this to offer another close colleague and somebody that knows our professor to be able to speak. And so I feel like it's a perfect opportunity that we have Dr. Catherine Schiller, the Chair of Nursing, who, both emblematically, symbolically, but also because of her commitment to be there on the Quesnel campus for the Staff Awards that she committed to some time ago, that she's also bringing the regions into this conversation, which I know is something that Davina holds really dear, and as we will hear, has been part of her many contributions. So I'm going to leave it to Davina to give her stories from whether it's the Severn River in Worcestershire. I don't imagine you'll manage to bring that in, but amazing journey from Cardiff and nursing and London and Bristol and times in the University of Victoria and McGill, and being recruited here to UNBC. We are so fortunate to have you here, Davina, and in your current role, not only as a professor in the School of Nursing, but as Interim Associate Vice President in Research Operations, which we're very thankful and deeply appreciative of the amazing contributions you're making. And I can see VPRI nodding her head vigorously. So Catherine, as promised, I would hand it over to you to offer a perspective from the School of Nursing and from the regions, and then we will hand it over to our the doctor of the moment, the professor of the moment. Over to you, Catherine. I'll just make sure you're going to pop up on screen, and she's here to help us with that. So bear with us while we set that up.
Wonderful. And I can't see Davina. Is it possible to have Davina
come and yes,
front and center?
Yeah, you can talk to Davina. That's a good thing. Then you'll make her cry. Don't. Then we're all screwed.
So, hi everyone. I can't even begin to tell you what an honor it is for me to have this opportunity to tell you what Davina means to the School of Nursing, and to have this chance to celebrate what she's accomplished at UNBC so far, but also to celebrate her as a person. I apologize that I can't be with you in Prince George for this amazing event, and give you all kinds of hugs, Davina. But it's actually pretty fitting that I'm here in Quesnel, which is the ancestral lands of the Lataco Dene, because I know that Davina has a strong connection with the regional campuses from her time as coordinator of our undergraduate nursing programs. So when Margot asked me to introduce Davina at this evening's event, she asked me to talk about what it means to the School of Nursing to have a scholar and a colleague like Davina. And I will say that Margot's request kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I thought, how am I supposed to convey something like that? Having Davina as a faculty member in our school has always felt a bit like having caught a bit of lightning in a bottle. I can start by saying that if you know Davina primarily as an academic and a researcher, you already know how brilliant and gifted she is in those areas. As a nursing scholar, her accomplishments are unmatched. Her research program is multi-pronged, but her primary focus has always been on cardiovascular health research, and the patient experiences. And that focus is for a reason that's deeply personal to Davina. Her understanding of what it means to live in a northern community, a more rural kind of community, has also led to her involvement in foundational research that pertains to rural healthcare systems, and the experiences of patients and practitioners as they do their very best to navigate challenges and to receive care, and to provide really high quality patient care. And all of her work shows a very deep, very unwavering commitment to the kinds of collaborative research approaches that many of us read about and talk about and wish we could engage in, and Davina turns them into reality. If you listen to her share her stories about the participants in her studies, the collaborative partners that she works with, you'll see what they mean to her and what she's learned from them. The stories that they tell are never, ever just words on a page. They are never just a voice on a recording or in a room. She somehow manages to find the person in each of those stories, and then helps us as the consumers of her research to be able to see those people too. And that kind of ability to focus in on a person is a really rare gift. And so we in the School of Nursing are really blessed that we have the chance to watch that unfold from front row seats. To date, Davina has more than 250 peer-reviewed outputs, including over 90 publications, more than $54 million in research funding, most of that from Tri-Council grants, major research funders. And the value that those funders see in Davina's research proposals, and one of the main reasons she's been so incredibly successful, really isn't so hard to identify or to understand. It's that no matter what the research project is, no matter what the initiative is, she is in it wholeheartedly, all of herself, bringing all of her intellectual brilliance and her passion to build up her research team, mentor their success, and bring new knowledge and insights to those of us who get to have the opportunity to read her work. In addition to her amazing portfolio of research projects, Davina also has a really incredible variety of scholarly outputs. And that includes a super lengthy list of training programs that she's developed and delivered, videos, webinars, infographics, policy briefs, reports. She was one of the earliest advocates in the School of Nursing that we should recognize a really wide variety of scholarly achievements in our scholarship guidelines, and not just for tenure track and tenured faculty, but also for senior lab instructors and senior instructors as well. And nurse academics are members of a very practice-driven profession. And Davina was the one who encouraged all of us to think really broadly about what it could mean to see gaps in knowledge, to identify those gaps, undertake data gathering, different kinds of data gathering methods, propose solutions that were really practice ready, and translate what was learned through research into an educational environment as well as a clinical environment. And all of those really innovative ways that she brought forward of considering what research and scholarship can mean made it into those guidelines. And even though those guidelines have undergone a number of revisions over the years, you can easily still see Davina's influence and ideas on every single page of the scholarship guidelines that we have today. As a teacher, there's very, very few of us in the School of Nursing who can match the sheer variety of courses that Davina has successfully taught at both the undergraduate and graduate level. She's taught theory, she's taught lab, she's taught clinical as clinical instructor, and she's always been seen as a leader in our school for culturally sensitive approaches to student learning and student teaching and trauma-informed approaches. And the reason that she's been able to continue to participate in such a really wide variety of courses is because, in addition to all of her academia successes, she has continued to practice as a registered nurse. Her clinical background is in critical care and hospice nursing, and that continues to drive her. She has worked at the Prince George Hospice House as a practicing RN for the past 16 years. When Davina became Associate Vice President of Research Operations at the university, our school was thrilled for her. We were thrilled at this amazing opportunity for our colleague, and we were so happy to see such a public acknowledgement of her research expertise and her knowledge. But as I'm sure you can imagine, that delight that we had for her was tempered by a little bit of sadness that she was leaving our team. And we should have known better, because I don't know how she finds the time, but she's still very much a member of our team, despite where she's been placed in research operations. She is just as much a member of the School of Nursing team as she ever was. She did not leave her team. She still accepts invitations all the time for School of Nursing retreats, meetings, program get-togethers, requests for assistance, and requests for mentorship. And last year, I created a welcome program for new faculty member in the School of Nursing, and I put out a request for longer-term members of the School of Nursing to volunteer to be a mentor for new colleagues. And Davina's email was the very first one that I received back, saying, I would love to participate and I would love to be a mentor for our new colleagues in the School of Nursing. And when I became chair, Davina offered me any support that I might need. And she has consistently made herself available whenever I needed her knowledge or her guidance or just her listening ear. And I can't thank her enough for that. So if I circle back to Margot's question of what it means to have a colleague like Davina in the School of Nursing, I'll just really simply say it means everything to be able to have somebody like her as part of our team. And I am thrilled to see Davina being chosen as the inaugural speaker in this professorial lecture series. There's no one who deserves this kind of recognition more. So congratulations, my amazing friend. And I'm so excited to hear you share your work so that everybody gets to know the amazing you that we know. Thank you.
Catherine, thank you so much. I'm going to not, yes, it's a tough one to follow, but a really important context, and really appreciate you being able to just open that up. And we're going to pop up Davina's slides and dive into this next extremely important opportunity. Just a reminder to everybody that Davina gets a chance to share what she wishes tonight. And then there is, you've all got your drinks cards, and there's a chance for a drink and some refreshments and an opportunity to celebrate and mingle. So with that, and the slides coming up here with Amshi's care, I'm going to say have fun, Davina, and a big thank you for being here.
Oh. I don't know what to say. That was very unexpected start, but thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It is such an honor to be part of the many teams here at UMBC, and to have the opportunity to reflect and share my own learnings along the way. I wanted to start really by thanking my family, my friends, my colleagues. I feel like you know, I came to Canada with very few people around me, but I've built a family, and a work family, a friend family, and so many of you are here, and just so grateful for that. It was such a difficult process when I was asked to do this, and I have been going round and round, like, how on earth do you do this? How do you tell the story of this career? And I really didn't know how to start, but I thought I'd focus on some stories along the way and highlight a few pieces of research. But hopefully what you'll get from all of it is that really it's about the people, and it's about the relationships. And each step of that, I feel I've been so lucky to be lifted. And so really standing on the shoulders of giants that paved the way for me, and hoping that in the process can pave the way for more people to come. Oh, okay, no problem. And please excuse the coughing. I had a terrible cold last week, and it's stayed with me. There we go. I'd also too like to acknowledge that we're here in beautiful Clayton territory. The opportunity to move here and to continue my own learning journey is so important. And I commit to continued learning in the face of much needed truth and reconciliation, and a long way to go. I thought I'd take it all the way back, so we're going to be here all night. So just, hang on, get the tea out. But I thought, where do you start? Well, you kind of start right in the beginning. And so I was born in Worcestershire, and I put the bottle of the sauce there and I said to Margot, I was going to mess with people and get people to say it, Worcestershire, and all the different variations. But yeah, I was born where the sauce is made. I think it's made there anyway now. But really had quite a simple childhood in a fairly small town by UK standards. And my parents, Roger and Carol, my brother Ashley, and I had a good extended family of grandparents and aunts and uncles and many, many cousins. And in the Banner situation over in Redditch, there are like thousands of us. My nan on my dad's side was a very productive mother, shall we say. But I look back and I was thinking, like, what were my memories as a child? And I put the picture of a bike and the nuts and bolts, because for as long as I can remember, I've loved to kind of live in this curious space. And so usually I would get a gift for Christmas and promptly take it apart, whether that was the alarm clock, or as it was, my new bike, which went into pieces and went back together, but with some pieces remaining. But I always had that curious mind and that independent spirit. And I think that's where my love for research really started, in those early kind of senses of being able to freely discover my environment. I have early appreciation too around being together as a family, and the importance that brought in my life. Now, I asked my mum to send me some pictures from school, and she sent me the most hideous array of hairstyles. Some of them I just couldn't even bring myself to put on. There's one, it's a thing. I just couldn't put it on. But I had generally a happy time through school, mostly through friends, being very social and a bit extroverted, and propensity to get myself in trouble in places. I made good friendships and still have many of those today. And actually, we still see each other every Saturday on Zoom. And so those friendships of more than 40 years, and what a privilege to have those. School was not always the greatest spot for me. I was in a very strict Catholic school, and so there was pieces along the way that didn't fit well for me, but I eventually found my groove with the help of some teachers that took an interest, in particular some science teachers that saw potential. Although looking back, the gendered expectations of the day, it felt like the expectations on me were quite limited, but that just seemed like a good challenge to me. University for me was the time in my life that was most enriching, going from a small town to a big city. But I should say the only reason I got to go was because the government paid tuition. Had I not had tuition paid, this wouldn't have been my life and I wouldn't be here now. I reflect on that quite wholeheartedly, on the people that have barriers that should be here today and can't be here today because of the fees around education as they are and the barriers that are there for some. But when I entered into university life, I got the opportunity to become a new person, kind of start afresh, got to think in new and critical ways. And I was extremely lucky to have world-leading professors that taught me with vigor and challenge. And I still remember some of those early days of some of the really crazy and provocative lectures that we would have. I feel very grateful for those early days. Out the door, really, from a nursing school, I was in a very small nursing school, but the expectations on us were high, and we were constantly told that you should go out, you should challenge how things are, and you should go and change the world. I left school with over 2,000 hours of clinical practice, along with foundations in pharmacology, pathophysiology, sociology, many, many things, and went into the big bad world. And I should say, I totally neglected to say, I did meet my husband in the first week of school that I was there, and then 10 years later married him. But that was the usual situation with a pint of beer and many shenanigans. But I'll leave those stories for another day. I was actually captain of a ladies' drinking team as well, but that's another story for perhaps another day, or maybe later after we've hit the bar. When I headed into practice, I went straight into the cardiothoracic intensive care unit, although I'd never been in an intensive care unit. And that's kind of something I seem to find myself doing a lot, is just kind of jumping in and thinking, well, what can go wrong? The first day I went in and I peeked around the door, and I quite literally ran out of the unit in fear of what I saw. Tubes, ventilators, machines. I was like, what the hell have I done? Like, this is crazy. But a month later, I was completely independent in that space as a new nurse, fully embedded in what was to become one of the greatest places I've ever worked. I gained a wide range of clinical specializations as I went. So intensive care nursing, cardiac nursing, but I also moved to gain experience with heart and lung transplant, as well as many other facets of clinical decision making. Over the course of my time there, I rose through the ranks. I was pretty early as a junior sister, and then early again as a clinical nurse specialist, with the opportunity to build a clinical trials service for cardiac surgery. And this all happened alongside the kind of start of my graduate studies. And so I always kind of joke that I'm a bit of an accidental academic, and it's kind of true. Early in my practice, I would often look around on the unit and notice that women consistently did poorer in the ICU. They stayed longer, they were ventilated longer, they had more complications, they died more frequently. And I was curious about that. So I wrote a research proposal, took it to someone who I thought could help me, and promptly left the meeting enrolled in a graduate program. and a year later fast-tracked to PhD. But it was an exciting whirlwind of a journey. And sometimes I think these opportunities come, and I think, you know, when we're looking too hard, we don't see what's, you know, just right there past the horizon. So it was a real opportunist moment. While doing that, I was still pursuing clinical leadership, and that's really where I stayed for many years until I eventually came here. And so on the way, I'll come back to this. I want to talk about my PhD in a minute, but I did towards the end of my PhD journey, I was pregnant with our eldest daughter, Sophia, and had the opportunity to move to Australia for a year. And we turned up to the hospital. I think I was about 25 weeks pregnant, and they looked horrified, like that I was just turning up for the first time, like, hey, you know. But I did assure them we had maternity care in the UK. And so we had our daughter, and I managed to finish my PhD. And a funny story, I was actually late to be induced at 42 weeks because I was trying to get the bandwidth to send my thesis, which was, so I handed it in, and then 9 hours later I was a mum. So yeah. But I did keep the doctors waiting, and they weren't too happy. So I was about 4 hours late to be induced. But I'll go back, and going back to that idea of what we see in practice, what we see in the world is inspiring us. Really, my PhD really started with those clinical observations around women. And the more I dug, the more I saw these disparities. And I wanted to kind of share some of that work. And, you know, as always, it's Heart Month, but it's actually well read for women's heart health today. And what's also interesting is I defended my thesis on Valentine's Day, which is a heart celebration day in the UK. So lots of good synergies. But cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death for women worldwide. But even in the time since this, and I'm old, like this was a long time ago, you know, we still see women's outcomes being far worse compared to men. There's still an underrepresentation of women in clinical research. Fewer women even lead research and trials. And so there's lots of global initiatives now in the past. But early on, I looked at women's journeys and felt that's a really good place to start, to learn from women themselves. And so I had the privilege of following 25 women through over a period of 9 months to 18 months through their journey through heart surgery. So from their diagnosis through to their surgery, through to their recovery, and learned so much about those journeys, learned so much about women's lives, and also how disconnected health services were and how tailored they were to a standardized male kind of process at the time. And so that was really my early research. Part of the thing I was able to do with that, I left shortly after finishing that to come to Canada, but we were able to shift some of the cardiac rehabilitation programs to include more things like yoga and things that were less intimidating for women, and to kind of get more women into those preventative and supportive measures. But it was something I would have liked to have done more of in the past. So I was a new mum, came back, and then I actually only went back to the UK very briefly, and we'd already made the decision we were coming here to Canada. And so I left Australia at, I think it was plus 37 degrees. And I landed in Prince George at minus 27. I was like, hell no. Like, no, like this, I had never seen minus 27. I was like, hell to the no, this is not happening. But soon fell in love, and Martha's here, and I had the very great privilege of doing a postdoctoral research fellowship around primary healthcare with Martha, as well as another postdoctoral fellowship, which was part of a CHR STIR program on cardiovascular health. And really those early postdocs were so pivotal in learning what research excellence is. And when you say you stand on the shoulders of giants, it's true. You stand on the wisdom that's been garnered through the work that has gone before you and the paths that have been paved. And so huge gratitude for those early experiences. And then I was very fortunate to get my tenure track shortly after in 2008, and began there. And Catherine said so many beautiful things, but the School of Nursing is a really special place. It's a special ecosystem here. The fabulous colleagues, the dedication to clinical care, the passion for education across all spaces is second to none. And it was such a privilege to be part of just an amazing team. It is such a busy school. You know, we have lots of competing demands like many professional programs, but we do it, I think, because we lean so much on each other, and we've built a community as part of that process. Again, going back to the notions of partnerships, it is the people that bring the success, and many of my colleagues are here too, and really would not be able to do what we do without each other. I had a great opportunity as well in these early days to learn about curriculum development, something I'd never had the chance before, to be part of accreditation activities, to be part of local, regional, national, international committees, to teach across many different settings. And so far, also for graduate students, I've had the great privilege of supervising over 75 graduate students and trainees, and immensely proud of them all. Riding waves and finding new paths. Over the years, it was quite the journey. You know, I look back and I think of all the amazing things that I got to do, but things were not always easy. In my early tenure track, I also had 2 other children, so 3 children under 5, created really an environment where it was really challenging to be a researcher, because you feel like crap most of the time, because you feel like you're doing a crap job at home, when a crap job in work. And I wasn't sure whether I'd share the story, but I think I will, because I think it's funny. But even trying to juggle things, immensely embarrassing things, like I just had a second daughter, but we had a CHR grant and we were pushing forward with it. And I brought her in and she was in a car seat. She'd been in a car seat all day. And I was having this meeting and I brought people in from all over the place. And at the end of the day, our middle daughter had just had enough, and I'd been kind of popping out to feed and then coming in and trying to be all like together, and you know, and so I had to bring her in and then I had to feed, but I just sat opposite a mentor, and he was very interested in what was going on, so quickly looked around and then managed to flash a boob at a colleague, feeling like completely mortified, which, you know, anyone that's nurse knows that isn't no good. Like, there's no excitement there. But I just remember thinking, like, how crazy it is, the things we do and the balances we try and find in our work. And a big plug for women, because we just, you know, we make it work, but sometimes, you know, you flash a boob, right? Like, you know, and I still want, I never mentioned it, but I still think it's like, and if he ever sees this presentation, oh my God. Anyway, but lots of times of challenge and balance, but still many amazing opportunities. And again, I received my promotion to associate in 2015. I became heavily involved with the Integrated Knowledge Translation Research Network, and I had a scientist position in the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute for 5 years. And that was really another transformational opportunity to build relationship through research and through, you know, it just extending the reach again. And then full professor in 2023. And then I've at the same time started a new scientist role with the Centre for Advancing Health Outcomes. And again, able to really focus on some equity work, which is really exciting. So I thought, going back to the idea of relationship, I thought I'd share a few kind of studies along the way, a few more stories, but perhaps more related to kind of some of the work. But my research program is really centered around kind of 3 areas. Again, that cardiovascular and complex chronic health conditions, as well as that kind of innovative professional practice and health service delivery focus, particularly around rural remote, as well as modes and practices of research co-production, and in particular IKT, integrated knowledge translation, and patient-oriented research, which are huge passions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each kind of area, but mainly I think want to focus around some of the patient-oriented research. So the first kind of major prong is that cardiovascular and chronic disease health research. It builds on my clinical practice and it's part of who I am. And Catherine had said the personal journey. Well, I think many in my family have passed away or suffered the consequences of cardiovascular disease. I lost my dad quite young from cardiovascular disease, and it really spurred me on to work in that field and to take that journey with heart. I had the opportunity to do a wide range of clinical research and health services research and clinical trials, and really those opportunities helped not only connect who I am here at UMBC, but build relationships across the country. I wanted to share though, like, we could do all these like great things, but small projects can have big impacts and small grants can have big impacts. And I wanted to share, I'm hoping I'm okay for time, you'll let me know. I wanted to share a really early study, but one that I still feel really proud of as part of our team. And so this was a small seed grant that was in partnership with Northern Health, the Provincial Health Services Authority and UMBC, and it really looked at the implementation and uptake of stroke prevention guidelines. And so stroke is a massive cause of morbidity and mortality. I think it's every 20 seconds a person in Canada has a stroke or a stroke-related issue. And there are many barriers and facilitators to treatment. And so if you're in a big centre, you're most likely to get some of those best practices. But when you're in rural and northern centres, you may not be so lucky, either because we just don't have some of those specialised equipment, or we have health system shortages and so forth. And so we really wanted to bring people together to learn about this issue. And so really the impetus of the project came from a cardiologist, Dr. Hattie, that was here in town at the time, as well as some community members. And we formed a group, and we formed this good group of knowledge users, including patients and frontline providers, and really came together to look at what we can do. So we started off doing kind of some of the really usual activities, I would say, some of the more traditional research activities, and you can see there's a whole list of things. We brought a really fabulous speaker in, and we hosted, I think it was 29 physicians to look at kind of clinical decision-making, guideline care. We did interest holder consultations and focus groups to look at community supports and what was needed. We did a rapid translation cycle by packaging a lot of these activities in a very short period, about a week. And we went back to clinical rounds and did these like rapid cycles of feedback. And we also did patient journey mapping, which was something that the health authority wanted to have to be able to use to kind of, again, help bring conversations around care. But I think what came unexpectedly was when we engaged our community partners, we started to see their interests were very different. They were like, yeah, it's really great, but we really want to explore this in a different way. And so Barbara Crew, who you can see here, was the patient co-lead, and we would meet and we would talk about the project, but she would always bring me pictures of art and postcards and things, and I was trying to desperately ignore that this was evolving as an art project because I am no good in that space at all. But with the help of Andrea's here, she remembers these conversations on a walk as a friend, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, this is what they want to do, and I can't do this. Like, I can't even draw a stick figure. Like, this is no good. But we engaged local artists, and we actually held 8 sessions. We had an Indigenous artist come, and you can see here the drum. Everybody has signed it, but we all made art, and I actually couldn't find the picture of the finish, but all of the art from the people of their journeys of stroke are painted on the front of the drum, and all of our names are in the middle, and it's not kept in a bookcase, it's kept out for people to use and to use in their healing. We also made tiles and collages and all sorts of crazy things, but mostly we connected and learned, and it really shifted the way we thought about stroke prevention. And it really also in turn went back into practice to look at new ways to think about health issues. And so I was going to just show a quick video if that's okay. Could I just double click it? Sorry, we're just figuring out the tech. If I do that, will it do it?
Oh, so that was executive functioning?
Maybe we have to share with someone?
Okay, I don't know. Do you know how to do that?
You know, can you switch screens? That's probably it.
I don't know if I want to do that and then mess up the. I don't know. We could leave it if you want.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't want to mess it up. Okay, we'll
We'll go for it and then maybe I'll.
When you can share your the video of the presentation. And share the little later.
Oops, I'm okay. Thanks. No worries. Yeah, so we might be able to come back to that, but it did look at some of the healing that came about as a result of many of those activities, and we had community members that were able to reconnect with communities and reestablish new paths of health for themselves, and it was really amazing. It was a $10,000 grant, and we squeezed every last penny out of it, and it's something we're incredibly proud of. And that program was supported through community arts grants and for some time as well. I mentioned the second prong too, and that was really focused around those health system, health services, health systems research, in particular around rural health, and really had the opportunity here to get engaged in many different kinds of activities, and again, forging new paths of research, and those included everything from primary healthcare models, nursing roles and nursing models, looking at health disparities, as well as things like COVID-19 impacts and the impacts of climate change on health and mental health. And I thought just quickly I'd share one of the examples as well that goes back to those partnerships. And so myself and Floyd Besserer, who's with the medical program here, had connected with the BC Emergency Health Services, and they were integrating a new paramedicine role, targeting rural remote communities. And so we were funded through the Rural Coordination Centre to conduct a study to really follow this process. We were able to go and do some early implementation work, and so learning about the needs in the communities, and that was fantastic. All of these small communities like Salt Spring Island, Campbell River, Prince Rupert, and lots of other, it was really fantastic. And then further down the line to see how these roles had integrated and the difference they'd made. And of course, you know, COVID just came like slamming in the middle of that. And so our phase 2 was quite delayed for good reason, because people were busy doing other things. But it was a really, you know, to me, I look back and I think how those relationships, you know, we were able to come together and bring diverse expertise to tackle an issue that has real, you know, a real issue for our rural and remote communities, and that is that they don't have access to enough primary care services. And so these roles, well, I should have said, are primary care roles. And so they're paramedics that go into people's homes. They help people to avoid going into the emergency room. If people need palliative care or pain relief in their end of life, it means people don't have to leave their home. They can go out and do those things. And so we really saw this amazing evolution of this role and their scope. But we also learned on the different resources and the supports they need, as well as some of the things that they need to evaluate and to sustain and to scale that up. And I won't go into it too much, but it was just a way that we were able to give back in our community and come together in quite an opportunistic way. And as you can tell, I'm not a paramedic, but again, the opportunity came, and I firmly believe we can all bring something to the table. This was the piece really where I really wanted to spend a little bit more time, is a passion around patient-oriented research. And for me, I'd always had that focus around the intersections of health services and patient experiences, but really wanting to see that optimized role and contribution of people with lived experience in research, and seeing the potential. And some of the early experiences that I'd had had shown me what is possible. And so really I thought, screw it, I'm going to just jump all in. And really then, as well as doing many great kind of activities, working alongside patients as partners, also then got the opportunity to really look at research methods around patient-oriented research. And that's really where I've spent a lot of time in the last few years there. And before we go on too far, and there's many, many people I can thank, but all of these fine, amazing people are people I've co-led studies with, some over 8 years we've worked together. And there may be a few folks online, but these people are so amazing. They give all of themselves, their wisdom, despite living very complex lives with very complex health conditions, whether it's a spinal cord injury or having heart transplants and being caregivers and so forth. But their passion to share their experiences and make things better has always astounded me, and it's been a real privilege along the way. Probably one of the proudest moments was I did get invited to go to Parliament with Mark, Gillian and Tracy as part of an initiative to advocate for heart failure care in BC, but in particular for the integration of nurse practitioners for heart failure care in rural communities. And we were welcomed into the house. We did about 10 sessions with MLAs, as well as a community forum. And it was just such a privilege and honor to be asked to be part of that journey. And Mark and Gillian are still, and I don't know if they're able to join, but they have stormed the hill of Ottawa, and they are in Parliament, and they are changing things at the very top and globally. So I get very privileged to work with amazing people. Oh, hi Gillian, you're fabulous. My sister. I always say that when we build these partnerships, we start as colleagues and we become friends, and then we become family, and truly it's a true honor to be part of this journey. I wanted to share then, just and quickly I'll be wrapping up, 2 studies I think that kind of speak to that passion around patient engagement in research. So one is a CHR funded study that looked at 6 networks in Canada as well as 2 international networks. It's still ongoing. We're coming right to the end. We're almost finished. But it looked at the health research networks such as AgeWell, which Shannon is really instrumental in. And it looked at, what are the factors that supported engagement? So what was it about those structures that made engagement possible, and how did it affect the impact of those? And so Mark, who was in the pictures, Mark Baines, Gillian and Sylvain were co-leads on this too. And so we really had a great time, I think, with this study, and we did a systematic review, and in the time I'm going to skip over, we kind of looked at some of the literature, but most of all, we looked at all the different networks. And this is an old clipping, and I have to update it. We have over 50 interviews across different networks, and we've talked to everyone from patient partners to researchers to clinicians to network leaders, administrators, and tried to look at how patient engagement is supported. And we really learned a great deal about the time and the resources and the space and the relationships. And again, coming back to that notion of relationship always is circling back, is relationship is key. And it's how we build those relationships. It's how we share our priorities, and it's how we work to act on those and to follow through in our commitments. And as part of that, we've been pretty productive with a whole range of training programs and tools and supports there. I wanted to also speak very briefly too about another study that I really wanted to share, but this was a little bit more unusual because this is a patient-driven and patient-led, or PLEX-led, so person with lived experience-led study. And so I was approached at a conference by John Chinesky, who works at Praxis, and Spring and a range of folks, and they really wanted to look at pressure injury and the effects of that, their risk, their management around and living with spinal cord injury. And again, this was totally out left field for me. I'm not a spinal cord injury researcher, but I said I could give you methods you have the expertise, let's build a team. And so this really started with patients and it finishes with patients. And so we've had 4 CHR grants now so far. We're hoping for another one, and Shannon's been an instrumental part of that team as well as other funding from Michael Smith and Praxis. And so we've really done some groundwork around elevating patient experiences, understanding the healthcare impacts, and then now moving into feasibility studies for interventions. I think one of the pieces that really came out is, when we start to bring those partnerships together, the magic happens. We start to hear about the real priorities and the real needs. And for years, we just didn't do research like that. We would just do what we think we needed to do, or we would use the literature, but it's really opened up a new world of opportunity. Again, we've got some pretty awesome things that we've produced as part of the partnership, and again, manuscripts is never our number one marker as an output. It is KT or knowledge translation that's meaningful to the community. And then my last point of call, again, and some familiar faces, Mark and Gillian, is the Canadian Heart Function Alliance. I was very lucky through previous relationships to be invited to be part of this amazing team. I'm now the scientific lead for the patient engagement and empowerment team, working alongside Mark and Gillian and a host of other people. We have over 90 patient partners now, trained with advanced research, participatory methods, and we're building a network across Canada and the globe. But what a privilege to work with amazing people again that share their lived experience. And I will say that we have all of these different goals, and again, we really want to advance those methods. We want to bring impact, but it goes back to that relationship, but it also goes back to holding steadfast, I don't know what the word is, but holding true to the principles and values of that relationship and following through. And so even if that means battling the odd cardiologist or person along the way, that nope, this is the way we're going to do it. And really, I think everybody has really come on board, and I think that's testament to people like Mark and Gillian that are the true leaders in this space. And I just feel very lucky to be part of that process. And so again, we've done lots of cool things. And so we have video series, we've done a in-person masterclass, we've done lots of conferences and training workshops, and Mark and I were even at the biobank, and that's a heart that was explanted from a patient that received a new one. He's actually looking also at bringing patients and community members into the biobank environment to raise awareness of transplant. And so we've really had the opportunity to do some cool things. And so overall, I would say it's the relationships and kind of leaning into the opportunities that have been so great along the way. Through all the research journey, I've had such a great time. It's just such a privilege. But now I find myself in new waters, and Paula's smiling, but I will tell a story of I know. So I received a very an email like, can you meet me? And I was like, and can you meet me today? And I was like, oh, I've done it. What have I done? And I was like, I can't meet today, but I can meet tomorrow. Great. Then I was like, okay. So overnight, I got myself, because I will say I messed up every research, finance and contracting process so bad. And I thought I've done it. I've actually I've broke it. This time I've broke it. So I was like, this is the sacking. Like they're done. Like you shall not do no more. So I go and I meet Paula. Paula comes through and she's like, just wait there. I've got to get myself together. So by this time I'm like, she's waiting for HR. She's got to get herself together. This is going to be so bad. And then we had this conversation, and she's like, we're looking at these interim roles. I was like, it's great. AVP research operations. I was like, it's so exciting. Like, this could be really cool. And I was like, oh, she asked me to be on the hiring committee. And then she's like, would you like to do it? I nearly fell off the chair. So I was like, I'm either going to get sacked or I've got a service commitment coming. But but it was like such an opportunity of shock, but one that was too good to miss. And it's been a tremendous privilege to work with Paula and the whole team and to support research in a different way. And I have a lot to learn and a long way to go, but I'm really enjoying it. And one of the great things I was tasked to do was to help support the new strategic research plan, the refresh. And so it's been a super fun journey, and just getting to know all of the leaders and the different roles. And so it's been a super fun pathway. But if you were to ask me what was next, I don't know. I'm enjoying it in the space, and it's really nice to just be in the present and enjoying it. And then new challenges, and just Andrew's there, who decided that we do spend no time together, which is kind of true. And so decided that we would try a new adventure together with pilot training. So he signed me up for the school, because I need school after all the work. And then an experience lesson, and I get there and it's like literally like a death trap. Like these planes are like 60 years old, the carpet's falling off, there's random holes, there's bees in places where there shouldn't be. And but I go up in the air and I'm like, this is wicked. And so this is me flying on my own in the top. I now fly on my own. And this is on the bottom, and it's something that has fueled a passion. I got over the summer last summer the opportunity to fly with the fire service, so fire spotting. And so I'm hoping to pass my pilot's license soon, very soon, and then do some volunteer for search and rescue and fire spotting. But I've spun a plane to the ground. I've probably almost killed my instructor 1,000 times, which is, he denies it, but he's still shaking and nervous. But yeah, new challenges and new things to do. So this is where I am. And with that, I just wanted to thank everyone, my family, my friends, my research lab team, Shayna, Kieran, Ash, Aidan, Alex, Jack. Like, there's just so many amazing people that help support the work. For people with lived experience, you are my reason. My work family, all of you, amazing, thank you. The university, like, I don't ever think I expected to have the opportunities I've had, and now I look back, I'm like, actually, I've kind of done quite a lot. It's like, cool. Obviously the funders, but then Andrew turned 50 last year, so I bought myself a dog because he didn't want a dog. But then and there's my Toby, and he's the love of my life. I'm my husband, sorry, but yeah, I love my dog. He's working. And then just a final dedication to my dad. I said he died of the consequences of heart disease, and we all have our whys, and he still is very much one for me. So thank you.
Well, what an honor to have that amazing set of stories as our first, our inaugural professorial lecture. You talked about being a researcher, an educator, and a leader, but I was just so struck by the inspiration of your lifelong learning journey. And one of the reasons to do this is to be able to hold up and inspire others. I'm so glad there's graduate students here, as well as other people who can be inspired by this kind of extraordinary journey. Thank you. And thank you for having the courage to be our first here. Yeah. There will be more. And what I didn't explain was that for the people online, one of the principles of these is that there are no questions. I just
have one thing to add. I forgot to say, Shannon, my ride and die. I did have a story about you, but I took it out. She's my ride and die.
That is, and so there we are. We have stories to continue over wine and food, which is the next stage of the evening. That it really is a celebration. Please do stick around and toast our inaugural speaker. I really want to acknowledge, and Leanna has been keeping track of numbers online. And for those online, if you'd like to offer Davina a message in the chat that we can collate them for her just while it's live and fresh, we'd be really happy to receive those messages. Or if you have a really burning geeky question, I am sure Professor Banner-Lukaris would be able to deal with those later. So thank you all for being here, family, friends, colleagues, the dogs, but also sources of inspiration. And please join us with an enormous thank you on behalf of the Faculty of Human and Health Sciences and the Health Research Institute. Thank you. Perfect. So great. So it is time to use your drinks tickets, and there's food in the room. Yeah, these things are just see you as a human and